Get Rich Education is brought to you by Mid-South Homebuyers and the landgeek.com.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 34. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, and I hope that you've lived an abundant week. One of my favorite quotes of all time is the Zig Ziglar quote, "You can have everything you want in life if you will just help enough other people get what they want." Now, to someone maybe like you that's in the accumulation mode of building up your investment portfolio and creating wealth for yourself, that notion of focusing on others seems antithetical or even counterintuitive. Well, you're thinking, shouldn't I focus on myself first? I mean, is it innate to think about yourself first, right? What happens when you're sent a group photo that you know you appear in and you're about to look at it for the first time? As soon as you receive that photo and open it up, who's the first person that you look for? Of course, it's you. You can't help but do it. You know, it is counterintuitive, but the more that you help others, you'll see that more opportunities open up for you than if you would have just been putting your own interests first instead. Just trust me on that one. You'll achieve more satisfaction in focusing on others too. Well, today's guest, Gena Lofton, calls this concept sending the elevator back down. Once you're successful, you have a responsibility to send the elevator back down and help bring up others with you. Right now, Gena didn't need to write a book like she has here. She has enough passive income such that she never has to work for the rest of her life. But you know, when it's all said and done and you're gone from this earth, no one remembers what you had. You're remembered by what you gave. Gena had a difficult upbringing growing up homeless in South Central Los Angeles, and then she was raised in the foster care system. By pulling herself up, she earned an MBA in international economics, and then her life took a dramatic turn when she began reading the Rich Dad books and following their ideas. Today, she leads the largest real estate investment group in Los Angeles. It's called For Investors by Investors. Gena owns 2,000 rental units herself, and now she's building a resort internationally. I see Gena at major national investor events, and this year Gena became the author of a great book called Escape the Madness, 10 Steps to Get Out of the Rat Race. And some of you will recognize that notion of getting out of the rat race as the objective in Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow board game. You know, the first thing that strikes you about Gena's book is its simplicity. It has large typeface, wide margins, and it breaks down investor terms in a very digestible fashion. And it's an important book because most people are largely financially illiterate and they're easily intimidated by these sort of headier finance and economic books, so they just turn away from them and they don't get read. If you want an introduction on broader investment terms, or you have someone in your life, maybe a younger person that might consume something more approachable and digestible like this, but that same person would turn away from a book that breaks down the mathematics of a discounted future cash flow analysis, then Gena's book is the one that you want. Her book is really a great stepping stone for someone that might want to learn more after reading it. And there's really a wide market served with a book like Gena's because most Americans have never heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or even know what terms like cash flow and passive income mean. What kind of mindset and thoughts take a person from homeless to 2,000 rental units? We'll meet Gena Lofton next. Are you looking for a way to build monthly cash flow investing in real estate, but without the typical hassles you hear about? While other people flock to compete in the house flipping and rental property markets, now could be the time to learn migraine-free real estate investing. In business for nearly 15 years, Mark Podolsky, aka the Land Geek, has unlocked the secrets to creating significant passive income by investing in raw, undeveloped land. No renters or tenants, no rodents or termites, no renovations or toilet repairs. Imagine achieving your financial goals without suffering through the constant stress that landlords and house flippers do. For more information, go to thelandgeek.com/GRE.
This is Cashflow Diaries Jay Massey. Do the right thing, then do things right. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold.
Hey, well, welcome to Get Rich Education, Gena Lofton.
Thank you so much, Keith. Glad to be here. I'm very excited about the interview.
Gena, you've proven to not just be willing to go out and educate yourself, but actually to turn the corner and be a doer, and that's something that some people have a hard time with. And you came from such a difficult upbringing that it was probably more difficult for you to go out on a limb and take that chance and go be a doer. So what was your upbringing like, and how did that influence you?
Yeah, that's a good place to start, Keith. So basically, my parents were unable to take care of any of their kids. There's 8 of us in the family. I was the second to the youngest, and they never had a, financial intelligence, I want to say. So they were not employed, not able to have a gainful employment for whatever reason. And I grew up in the foster care system, bouncing from foster home to foster home, running away from them. Was very rebellious as a kid, kind of hated being in the system. And the sad part about it is as I got older and I realized the difference between an asset and a liability from studying, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
I realized that I was an asset to the foster homes, right? Isn't it sad? I was like, they were getting paid to keep me. So I became the asset, but I didn't realize this until I got much older. I just didn't understand, why are they actually taking care of me? And it was because they were getting paid.
You were a valuable commodity.
I was a commodity, exactly. I was the asset. Yeah, so that was my upbringing, and I didn't really have much guidance as a kid. None. I just kind of had to figure it out all by myself, and dropped out of high school in 9th grade, and I was on the road to either be dead or in jail, one or the two, because that's pretty much what everyone else did that I grew up with here in South Central Los Angeles. And it was actually in a little suburb called Pomona, California at that time. And fortunately, my 3 oldest siblings bought a house. They saved their money. They got good jobs, bought a house, and actually went to these foster homes in which me and my younger sister were living in, and asked us if we wanted to rejoin the family. And I didn't at first because I didn't know who they were, and they never showed up at court I never saw them for years, so I didn't want to at first. But then I realized the alternative would have been devastating, because I would have been in jail or 6 feet under like everyone else I grew up with. And I called them and said, sure, I'll go and live with you. And fortunately worked something out with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and went to Catholic school for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade and graduated. Was never very academic. I just knew I needed that little piece of paper because, they said you had to have it. So I did. I went and got it. And they said you needed a degree. So I applied to college and went to Cal State Northridge, and didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I needed that little piece of paper. And I did. I got that piece of paper, which is called a bachelor's in pre-law political science, and got good jobs, was always able to, I was pretty smart, pretty street. Actually, I have a dual degree, I call it. I have a street smart, and I have a degree in the traditional educational system. But if I had to give one back, believe me, it would be that degree.
Piece of paper. I knew that.
Yeah, that piece of paper could go. I want my street smart. That is more valuable to me than anything.
Do you consider some of that street smarts that you achieved through when you began reading Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad, Poor Dad books, or do you consider that more academia?
No, I consider that some of the street smart
Yeah.
too, but it didn't begin with Robert Kiyosaki. It began with my life living on the streets. Robert Kiyosaki, gosh, he didn't even come into my world until probably the early 2000s, 2001 or 2, I believe. And then I started listening to him, and I was able to, kind of get rid of all that mainstream media and that educational system that I had been learning or been forced to learn. And I just really started learning from him and the likes of Peter Schiff and Tom Wurwright and all the Rich Dad advisors as they published new books and new podcasts, and they got smarter and or started delivering or developing more books. And then I got better and better and better and learned more from them. And my street smart kind of was complemented with their books, which it's not a traditional education, but it was a better education than what I got in the traditional educational system.
Yeah, and Kiyosaki really grabs people. He transforms lives. And the way he grabs people in the beginning, in my opinion, is he has a great element of contrarianism. For example, he turns things upside down from how people used to think about things when he says your house is not an asset, it's a liability because it takes money out of your pocket rather than putting money into your pocket. Hey, don't live below your means. Instead, use those same energies to expand your means. So it's contrarianism, yet it makes so much sense.
So when I read his book, and he was one of the primary reasons for me to be able to have gotten out of the rat race. I mean, to be quiet, I didn't even pretty much know I was in a rat race until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and started playing the game cash flow. I was living in Brazil, and I was working for a firm called Ernst & Young for many years, and came back here to the States in like 1997, 98. Bought a big house, had a great career at this wonderful firm called Ernst & Young. And I read his book, and it says your house isn't an asset. At that time, I only had maybe one other property that was generating a couple $100s a month in passive income. And I literally started to shake in fear. You talk about how did I do it? I was very, very fearful of being dependent upon my job at Ernst & Young for my lifestyle, to put a roof over my head. I couldn't sleep. I was sweating at night. I mean, that's how bad it was. After I realized my house wasn't an asset, that I would eventually deplete my savings or I had to go find another job if anything were to happen to me. So at that time, I sold the big house, I downsized, and I started buying assets that put money in my pocket. And I did that, and I continued to do that, and I was continuing to learn. And, I made mistakes. We all have done that. But I continued to just learn and study and learn and get savvy as time went on. And now I don't need a job, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing about it. I mean, whether or not I elect to continue to work in corporate America is one thing, but the beauty that you get with financial freedom is being able to have a choice. And I think that's what's really important. And that's why I wrote the book called Escape the Madness. It's about my journey because anybody could do it. I mean, if I could do it with nothing, I had literally nothing. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, and I figured it out. And I tell Robert Kiyosaki this, or if you look at my video, I didn't have a rich dad or a poor dad. I had to go and figure this out. I didn't have neither one of them. And so in a way, Robert Kiyosaki was my rich dad and my poor dad, literally. I would study him. And then I got better, CPAs and better advisors that could see what I'm trying to do and understood the cash flow quadrant too, because at the time I was making most of my money as an employee. And I understood the tax code by reading, Tax-Free Wealth, and then shifting that income over to my business and my investments.
Yeah, with what you touched on earlier, yeah, Gena, I mean, that is such a powerful book and series of books from Rich Dad, Poor Dad to have an intelligent, worldly, accomplished person like you sweating at night in concern after you read that book. That's powerful.
That's why my book has a ball and chain on it, and I'm free. We all need to figure out how we are going to teach everyone, regardless of what their social and economic background is, about how to generate income. The bottom line is it's a financial illiteracy problem in this country, and that's what I love about Robert Kiyosaki's teaching. what I like, Keith, about what you're doing with Get Rich Education is these people, the entire world needs to be able to increase their literacy in finance. Financial literacy is the problem. And so I'm a huge advocate for what you're doing here, and that's why I'm on the show, and whatever I could do to help other people like yourself to continue to spread the word.
And your book, Escape the Madness, 10 Steps to Get Out of the Rat Race, can help someone from becoming lower class. You know, as we do continue to see this dichotomy between more wealthy people and more poor people and fewer middle class people, part of that socioeconomic component is having great sources of diversified passive income. And your book, even though you're a real estate person, it doesn't just focus on real estate. It's just got a great general sort of macro picture on how to generate passive income.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was intentional. And for those of you that have read my book or may buy the book and you're saying, my gosh, she wrote it and it's so simple. I mean, it's like, what did I get out of this? It sounds like it's a little esoteric, or it could be perceived that way. And that's not the intent. I mean, I really want to appeal to all people. I mean, there are some people that are your listeners that know everything in this book. I mean, Kim McElroy, I love him to death. I invest a lot with him and own real estate with him. He probably knows everything in this book, okay? But there are other people that don't know how to do it. And this is to create a step-by-step process. And the first thing is knowing your why. And I'm a firm believer in understanding your why, because if you don't have a why that's so strong until it'll make you cry, I don't think that you'll be able to get there.
Have a why so strong that it makes you cry when you think about your compelling why?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
My why was so strong. Yeah, if it's not so strong to make you cry, it won't. I think the success of you being able to you're going to have a lack of success to get out of the rat race. It would have been so easy for me to sit back and, work at my wonderful career at Ernst & Young, making bukus of money as a consultant like I was doing. But my why was so strong, which was to never be homeless again, because that's what it was, what I remember from as a child. Then, now that I'm out of the rat race, my why is so much stronger. It's really about helping other people. It's actually not even about me. It's about other people. And when I say sending that elevator back down, that's what I'm talking about. I did it. I'm very successful at what I do. I could actually sit back, go travel the world, have Mai Tais, wherever, and just live a happily ever after life. But to me, that's not very fulfilling. It's really about giving back.
Yeah, and you give back in a great way, because you do mention the word simple with your book, but I think that's what is going to make it resonate with more people, because there are fewer people that know a lot, like Ken McElroy, and there are a lot of people that know less. So that makes your content very digestible, in my opinion. For example, you've even got a section of your book called Key Financial Concepts, where you just very simply in large type break down what is cash flow, what is net worth, what is a balance sheet. And I do that on every 10 of my shows so far on something called Vocab Rehab, just coming out with basic investor vocabulary so that no one's left behind, and then they can understand more. A lot of times people don't want to admit how little they know because it makes them look vulnerable. So this book is great for that person.
Yeah, exactly. And I like digital books. I love to have them. But this is one book that I do strongly recommend that you get it, the physical copy, because there's action items in the back, and you want to go back and reference it at times, and it's something that you might want to keep and just say, okay, what was those steps? And the steps in the book, they're sequential. Finding out where you are first, right, before you can determine where you're going. Understanding the financial concepts, right? Those are going to happen all the way through the book. Knowing what your balance sheet is, knowing what your income statement is. If people don't know what those are, you can read my book and determine what they are, but you need to actually understand and create that financial statement for yourself. And, one of my goals always is at the beginning of the year, I want to have my net worth needs to go up by X. My passive income needs to go up by Y for that next year. And And that's how I achieve my goals. One other thing about the book, too, and the reason why I don't talk real estate necessarily, some people are afraid of real estate, number one.
Right.
Some people think it costs a lot of money to even invest in real estate. So rather than argue the merits of those positions, I just wanted to bring in other types of ways to generate passive income that really don't require too much of anything other than identifying what your passion is and what you're good at. And, I remember listening to Robert Kiyosaki years ago, and he talked about the genie inside of us. And if you understand that word genius, Genius, genie inside of us. All of us have one. All of us. God gave all of us, I don't care if you're Hindu, Buddhist, whatever, Christian, all of us have a genie inside of us because there's some higher being that gave us that, gave us at least one. So find out what is that genie inside of you. All of your listeners need to figure out what is that genie inside of them, and then determining how to monetize it. That's what I'm talking about. So I talk about passive income, the different ways, whether that's real estate, whether that's intellectual property, whether that's creative works, whether that's dividend income, whether that's business income. I have all of them. I get very rich with debt. That's really what I do as a real estate investor. I buy a property, I increase the value of the property, I go back to the bank and I say, okay, Mr. Banker, the value of the property now has been increased. I want to do what's called a cash out refinance of the new value that I've created, and then I get a new loan. Then that loan actually pays off the existing debt, if any, and returns the money back to me and my investors. And that's what's called infinite returns.
Right. That way you don't have any more of your money locked up in the deal. It's been returned to you, and all the returns thereafter are pure profit with no more of your money left in the deal once it's been returned to you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's like nirvana for me. I love that. I only do value-added real estate because I want all my money back out of the property as fast as I can to be able to redeploy that capital. So when you hear people talk about the velocity of money, that's what we're talking about. It's being able to get the money, making it work, and then turning it real quick. If interest rates are at 0%, and that's what they are, and they're going to stay that way for the foreseeable future, I don't care how many threats Janet Yellen tells you that she's going to increase them. Peter, I love how he puts it. He's like, that's just like threatening about you're going to lose weight, you're going to go on a diet, you're going to go on a diet, you're going to go on a diet, and every year that's your resolution. It's not really going to happen.
Yeah, and just to clarify for our listeners, we're talking about the federal funds rate there, which has essentially been at zero since December 2008, that other interest rates are based off of.
Exactly. So you don't want to be a saver right now with interest rates that low. That's why, Robert Kiyosaki says cash is trash. And that's the reason you want to be in debt. So, the question is, and I tell this to my investors all the time that aren't usually investors, like most people traditionally afraid of debt because that's that old school mentality. You get a job, you work until you're 65, and then you pay off all your debt. All of those rules, I don't need to work until I'm done now. I'm not even 50. So all of those rules are everything that you had believed as growing up is wrong. And you need to be able to function in a world where you have an opposing argument and being able to understand both sides of the argument and picking what's right for you. I choose to actually get very, very wealthy with debt and let my tenants pay off that debt. So if, I'm borrowing at 4%, how much would you borrow at 4% to make 10? Me personally, I want to borrow all of it.
As much as we can.
As much as we can.
Yep, it's just more of that contrarianism, savers are losers, debtors are winners, just like the Rich Dad books say. And I think it's great to have someone else come onto the show, so I'm not just a voice myself that's applied this, that's had great change in my life. It sure has in yours. I sure hope that I'm sending the elevator back down with my show to help pull people up with me. I'm sure you're doing that with your book. Again, the name of the book is Escape the Madness, 10 Steps to Get Out of the Rat Race. Gena Lofton, thanks so much for coming on to Get Rich Education today.
Thank you, Keith.
You've been listening to the Get Rich Education podcast, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.